Hi, everyone. As you all know, we're in the midst of reading Slaughterhouse 5, and given that we are also compiling information relative to the most significant events involved with the novel, I will be sharing information on the Children's Crusade, and giving credit to the rest of my group for getting all the info necessary to make what I would hope to be a half-decent video. In case we don't first understand the normal Crusades, a quick rundown is something along the lines of those who were Christian decided to purge the Muslim population and purify, air quotes, their Holy Land. The same concept applies here, however the men were kids, and while no age is directly incredibly stated, a good estimate would be that most boys were between 12 and 19 years of age. Basically, people were already tired of the Muslims being in their Holy Land, but didn't do much about it. That's when Stephen of Cloyes stepped in. Right before anything got even close to out of hand, Stephen preached that Christ himself gave a letter to him, claiming that it was to be delivered to the king, and the word of the crusade must be spread. He went on to gain a powerful and large following, and it's claimed that by the time they all massed in central France, there were 30,000 children, not a single one over the age of 12. They were mostly boys, but there were still a couple girls and some adults of the like. They marched all the way to the Marseilles, relying on charity food and water. Many children died or tried to find their way home, and the people of the Marseilles greeted them happily upon their arrival, often supplying shelter for what they could give. The kids all gathered at the harbor so they could see the sea part, but it didn't happen, so unlike what Stephen told them, they became very angry at him. They called him a liar, so on and so forth, but his word had already spread, and with lies come punishment, and he was scolded and resented by all the people he knew. This is incredibly unreasonable, but highlights how society has imposed innocent children to execute dubious agendas crafted by potentially older people. Or, to simplify that a little bit, it's crazy because it shows how people who are older tend to influence children to get things that are, I guess, less reasonable. And it ends in bad ways because it doesn't seem as though they have the maturity to react properly to these situations and outcomes that come from these bad things that they're doing. Anyways, to continue onwards, the story also emphasizes the idea that children, both now and in the past, aren't capable of such harsh and demanding actions due to their lack of maturity and ability. For example, I'm sure you've never been robbed by a 12-year-old. The 1963 Children's Crusades really highlight the same idea that children cannot be expected to accomplish tasks such as the ones they were influenced to execute during the original Children's Crusades. During the Civil Rights Movement, in an attempt to desegregate Birmingham, Alabama, after the entire movement began losing all interest and consideration they worked so hard for, they turned to children, and in a bold move, they turned to black children. Students with the rationale that they have less to lose, stated by the Stanford Journal of Civil Rights around the same time. On May 2nd, 1963, more than 1,000 African American students skipped classes in effort to support desegregation. A noble cause that was viewed as an incident to a lot of people in a certain community. So, upon getting word of the incident, police usually use brute force pretty much, blasting high-pressure hoses, clubbing them, using police dogs to attack them, get them back to class, just something to stop them from protesting pretty much. This is also evident and cited from Stanford. So Martin Luther King attempted to justify and reassure parents that they weren't doing a job for themselves, but for all of America and for all of mankind by allowing their children to do this. Further supporting the significance of imposition on children to advance a potentially noble cause. However, people can't expect children to make such mature decisions, and as confirmed throughout history, it usually doesn't work very well. Okay. So that's my whole description on it. We're going to get one quick video clip, sum it all up, and then we can answer any questions.
The Crusades for the Holy Land are very famous battles that took place over many years, but two of the lesser known are the Children's Crusade. They took place in 1212 after the Fourth Crusade, a failure to the Western Christian society. The Children's Crusade is easily thought of as a great disaster, as an estimated 50,000 children joined the Crusades to try and banish Muslims and Jews from Jerusalem. There were two separate crusades, both happening in the same year. The French Crusade was led by Stephen of Cloyes, a 12-year-old shepherd boy from New Orleans. Being a peasant, historians guess that he was illiterate. However, this did not stop him from claiming to have received a letter from Christ that stated he lead another crusade to Jerusalem. Stephen believed that since he was a child, God would protect him and his journey would be successful. Determined, he marched to King Philip's court and told him of the letter. Philip, however, was not impressed and told him to leave and never return. Despite the king's disapproval, Stephen still preached around and gained 30,000 followers, mostly children, by June of 1212. He claimed that they would be able to simply march across the waters of the Mediterranean, for God would part the seas for them. Stephen and his army marched to Marseille, but by this time many boys had either died of exhaustion or dropped out. The waters, of course, did not part like Stephen said they would, so a merchant offered the boys on his 7 ships. For many years, no one ever heard of them again, until a priest traveling in North Africa came upon a white man and they started to chat. This man claimed to be a survivor of the failed Crusade. He said that 2 of the 7 ships sunk, killing everyone on board. Pirates had captured the other 5, and the boys had been sold into slavery in Egypt. The story seems convincing, but we do not know the validity of it. We will never truly know what happened to Stephen of Cloyes and the other 30,000 boys.